Let's go ahead and get started. Are we out on the air? Okay. All right, Madam Clerk, when you're ready, a roll call, please.
So, Curran, Freeling, present, Harrison,
Here.
Hinkleman, Ott,
Here.
Pitchford's absent, Tyler, Borath, Werfel, here, Yocaro is absent, Elliot,
Here,
you have 9.
thank you. Enough for a quorum.
Yes, sir.
Minutes from the 26th.
Mr. Chair, I would make the motion.
I'll second it.
Moved by Freeling, seconded by Tyler. Any conversation about the minutes? Motion, or all in favor, then signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. I shouldn't have had that donut. I'm already spiking the sugar. I do, but I had a donut. I haven't had a donut in, I don't know, a couple of years. And so I'm gonna, anyway, minutes are approved. Requisition review.
Good morning. Does anybody have any questions about the requisitions? Thank you.
I think it's time for the scheduled discussion. Might you be Jonathan Smith?
Mr. Chair, while Mr. Smith gets ready, you all are going to hear about MDOT's planned reconstruction of Main Street outside this window. The MDOT team has been kind enough to include a variety of county departments through their pre-planning process and public engagement. So
Okay.
between myself, Don Trail, Carrie Smetanka, and then representatives from the Sheriff's Office, we've been watching this design come together. This is one that it is an absolutely massive project that will impact county admin. It'll impact courthouse, the Sheriff's Office, and even the Equalization Department. As a result, knowing that there's so many impacts coming, Mr. Smith was willing to come and provide an update on behalf of MDOT. Just he'll walk you through what is being planned, and then my hope is that
All right, good morning. Thanks for having me. Name is John Smith. I'm the MDOT project manager for this future St. Joseph project that we'll be talking about today. I've been at our MDOT Coloma office since 2005. Started there as an intern, hired in there full-time after college. Went to Western Michigan University. Born and raised in the Coloma area. So despite what, a lot of people think, MDOT comes down from Lansing, says what we want to do and walk away from it. Born and raised in the area, frequent St. Joe a lot for different things. So, again, I have, a vested interest in here, as well as, the other individuals from MDOT and out of our office that are involved in this also are, live and work in the area. So, so today, just going to kind of go through high level discussion on what this project is, going to try and give you a quick glimpse to the past of what we've done on this project so far, as well as, a little bit of what we've been working on recently, and then kind of where we're going in the future. So hopefully it gives you a little bit better understanding of the project. Everything I'm going to be going over today is kind of what we've been rolling out in our public meetings that we've had, as well as stakeholder meetings. But, again, it'll be a good kind of overall, refresh of what the project is if you haven't paid attention to it thus far. So really for this project, again, MDOT's, I feel like, been very transparent on what we're doing. We've had a lot of stakeholder meetings, a lot of public involvement. So for the project limits, it's pretty much the entire Main Street area going from Central Avenue up to the Blossom Land Bridge, which is the lift bridge, right here by St. Joe. And then we're also going to be doing Port and Ship Streets, going all the way to the Bicentennial Bridge. That was the one that everybody knows of this past, 4th of July holiday would not come down all the way for us. So, good waypoint there. And then also we have a small little section of resurfacing on Niles Avenue, M63, for just a couple blocks going from Winchester up to Main Street as well. Again, the main work is going to be out here on Main Street. That's going to be reconstruction fixed type, as well as Port and Ship Street will be reconstruction fixed type. The piece between the Morrison Channel Bridge and the Bicentennial Bridge, that's going to be more of a rehabilitation. A couple course asphalt resurfacing is what we're anticipating right now. And then that small piece that I spoke on Niles Avenue, that's just going to be kind of a single course asphalt resurfacing there. Oops, find the right button to click here. Too many. So just before I get too far too, I missed one thing. You know, when I say reconstruction, we're replacing everything under the road as well. Storm sewer, sanitary sewer, water main. We're doing operational changes. We're doing streetscaping, traffic signals, the whole, you know, kit and caboodle a little bit. We're going to be taking. So again, we're kind of, you know, pretty much be redoing everything from the ground up out here along Main Street. It's due. The concrete's 1950s concrete. It's lasted well past its prime here. It's been repaired many times, and it's time to kind of get into that underlying layer and then also replace a lot of the municipal utilities as well. But now getting into the schedule, I'm not going to get too detailed on this. This project's been ongoing in some form or another since basically early 2020. Had a discussion with City of St. Joseph at that point in time. They have, you know, obviously, you know, some vested interest with the roads in their community here. So we kind of sat down and said, hey, where do you guys want to focus on as far as, you know, the next project that we have with MDOT? Main Street was the one that rose to the top of the list. You know, this is right through our downtown. We want to focus on that. So at that point in time, we did some real high level, what we call scoping, basically investigation, kind of looking at what, you know, what we wanted to do on that project, how much it might cost, you know, when could we get it into our 5-year program, things along that line. Now, between then and basically 2020 and then early 2023 or mid 2023, kind of in a hiatus time frame, got it in the program, waiting until, you know, we can obviously, you know, get our funds obligated and start working on the project. At that point in time, we actually split this project into 2 different phases. We call it a EPE, early preliminary engineering, and then also the PE, that's preliminary engineering. The difference between the two is the EPE is we started looking at the soils, you know, doing investigation into all that, got our survey going. We started our stakeholder outreach, reaching out to locals. We did a survey, different things along the lines of that to try and, you know, conceptualize what this project is going to look like. That way, once we got into the PE, which is our true design portion, we're starting to put lines on paper, laying things out. We knew we were kind of going at that point in time. We had a real good springboard to, you know, launch off of that. And then right now, as far as construction, again, I'm going to kind of miss a couple of the next lines there. Those are kind of our different design milestone reviews. But as far as construction, we're targeting 2027, 2028 timeframe, and I'll get into a little bit more on that as we go. Real quick, wanted to highlight this. As I mentioned, we've had stakeholder meetings throughout. The one on the left are various, you know, groups within the area that we've involved. On the right, that's our design team led between Tetra Tech, Syncart Consulting Group, and Rowe Professional Services Company. It's a great group, and we've worked, you know, real well together here. And then, you know, as we've engaged those advisory group members, it's been a great, you know, great partnership that we've had throughout. You know, we bounce ideas off of them, they give feedback to us, we go back, we kind of look at different things, and you know, all this is kind of, you know, helped develop to the project where it is today. Now, kind of again, looking back at where we've been to see where, you know, we're kind of going a little bit. That EPE phase, early preliminary engineering phase, again, that started in 2024. You know, that consisted of, I think, 3 advisory group meetings, 2 public meetings, a public survey, which we had 875 responses for, which when I'm talking to my consultant team, they said they've never had a public survey that they put out for an MDOT project that had 875 responses before. If we've gotten 50, we would have been ecstatic. And then it's all of a sudden it's 875. So we actually had to cross-reference and make sure there wasn't some weird, you know, AI bots going on or something like that. But it was all legitimate responses by people from the community. And a lot of them were residents that we got feedback on. Now going into our design phase, which we're in now, which kind of started in, you know, late 2024. You know, again, we're to today. We've done our base plans. That's what we call line and grade. That's 30% detailed. We're kind of laying out where, you know, different things are going to go. Following that, we had another advisory group meeting. Then we had, you know, following that, our 3rd public meeting. And then as we kind of got to that point in time, we were starting to think about, hey, how are we going to build this project? What's going to make the most sense, give us, the best product, get good costs for us, different things along the lines of that. And so we actually advanced, that's why there's the little, the blue and red arrows there on the right side of the screen. We kind of advanced another advisory group meeting as well as a public meeting to kind of roll this out and, kind of show, hey, here's the options that we're looking at, and this is what our recommended alternative is. Again, just kind of showing how things have progressed a little bit throughout. One of the big things that we heard in our survey that we really looked into was kind of the safety of pedestrians and everyone that frequents this corridor, especially these pedestrian crossings. A lot of people are going from one side of the main street to the other. So we started looking at, hey, what makes the most sense as far as pedestrian crossings out here? So we're looking at existing, as you look at it today, there's a lot of crossings that might be, 50, 60 feet wide with no refuge in the middle of them. They're not at a signal, so they're not really protected. So the one thing that we started looking at was we want to hang our hat on, we're going to eliminate any uncontrolled pedestrian crossings along Main Street that, is not at a signal or does not have some sort of a refuge. That's where we feel that we can provide the safest crossings for people. And again, it's myself crossing a street is going to be different than, somebody like my parents crossing the street is going to be different than, a young family crossing the street. So we need to really, we're trying to look at that overall as far as, what makes the most sense for all users crossing the street. So this was our initial graph that we're looking at. Okay, hey, we're going to eliminate some crossings where we don't have them protected either by that refuge island or they're not at a signal. Now, kind of, again, the beauty of the great involvement we've had with the city of St. Joe was, and then the stakeholder outreach and the public meetings that we had some people that had kind of expressed, it'd be nice if we could expand crosswalks and kind of look at that a little bit more and see what we can do to try and balance things a little bit better. So myself and the design team kind of went back to the drawing board, started having discussions. Okay, hey, what can we do? So the top image here, that alternative one current design, that was what we initially had kind of following the prior screen that I had. Alternative two is what we came back to and we presented at our last public meeting. Basically, we kind of redistribute some of the left-hand turns out there. We can put some additional refuge islands, which, if you want to high level think refuge islands, it's like the median planters out here, but you have a crosswalk going through them. So somebody can stop part way and look the other direction and then proceed across. So kind of redistributing through there, we end up kind of, allowing crosswalks at every crossing in some form or another, with the exception of Jones Street. And the only reason why we didn't look into that one further is that is so close to the Niles Avenue intersection. There's only so many ways that you can make that one safe. So that one we're actually going to be redoing a little bit. You'll see on the next screen, kind of extending a little median through there to kind of cut off some traffic movements to try and make that overall intersection safer. But other than that, you're always within a block of a crosswalk to get across the street. And they're always either going to be at a signal or have a refuge island there to proceed across. Wrong button. So again, this is the Jones Street one, just high level, hitting on this. Again, the red line there, kind of right in the middle of the screen, that's showing the kind of extending that extending that little concrete island all the way through. Now, people can't cut straight across Main Street there. They can't necessarily come from Jones and turn left to head, either direction. But it again kind of helps with the overall operations of this. The one thing that I'll add here with Jones Street as well, it's kind of in that top rightmost little box there, is we are actually going to be looking at adding an extra southbound left-hand turn on Niles Avenue. If anybody's driven through there, that left-hand turn gets backed up pretty good. Right now, it's kind of just hatched out because there's just extra pavement kind of there. So we're going to be looking at adding another left turn there. So you'll have dual left-hand turns, kind of similar to what you have on Niles Avenue northbound, taking the right-hand turn on the Main Street. Next, giving a plug for Kalen Construction. You're probably wondering, why is Kalen Construction sign on here? That's because we're doing something a little bit different with this project, trying to think outside the box. We're coming into this project, we're like, hey, this is going to be a very impactful job for a community. There's a lot of things going on. We're right by the river. We got 2 lift bridges, deep utilities that we're going to have to do. So the one thing that we did on this project that we don't typically do on road projects is we went with this construction manager general contracting method. And basically, the quick and dirty of it is we bring a contractor in during design and they're a part of the design process. We can get feedback from them. They can tell us, hey, this is how I would stage this work. This is an issue that we might foresee in construction. They can give us feedback on what the schedule might look like. Again, all those things, it's an ounce per prevention is worth a pound to cure a little bit. So there's a little bit extra cost to have them on during design, but it also will save a lot of things later on. At the end of this whole process, we also have what we call an independent cost estimators on board as well. It's another contractor consultant that have worked on jobs. They're along the way as well, kind of seeing everything that we're talking about with the contractor, providing input. They're looking at pricing, different things to make sure at the end of the day, we're going to be, we're getting a good, honest price from our contractor. And then at the end, we start doing negotiation process with the contractor. And if we come to an agreement with the contractor, which is Kalen right now, we move forward with them right into construction. So the one that we've had on through all of design goes right into construction. Great teamwork and partnership at that point in time. For some reason, we can't come to an agreement with that contractor, then we put this out like our normal bid process, and Kalen can bid on it like anybody else at that point in time. And it would go to our normal, low bid type process there. But again, having them on during design is worth its weight to get all that information up front. We've had discussions with them in meetings. It's been very eye-opening for us as a design team, and it's been, I think, very eye-opening for them as a contractor as well, because rarely do we get in the same room talking about some of these things. And now they're like, there's a couple times where it's that, they didn't realize that's why we had to do what we did. And we didn't realize that's why they had to do what they did. So, it kind of comes to the best possible option at the end of the day. So as far as construction staging goes, I'm not going to hit on all those bullet points there. But these are a lot of things that we're taking into account as we're looking into it. Again, right in the downtown area. Access is a big thing. Again, there's a lot of deep utility work that we're going to have to work through. How are we going to phase this to still provide that access? We have, community events, how are these things to be done? I mean, these are a lot of the parts of the discussion that we've had as far as the contractor goes. So the most recent public meeting that we had, the biggest part of it was rolling out construction staging. What was considered and what is our recommended alternative? So next couple slides here kind of show the different alternatives that we looked at, pros and cons to everything in life, right? So alternative one was part with construction. Basically working on, for instance, out here, we'd be working on southbound, maintain traffic on northbound, then flip flop. Seems pretty easy, right? It's good, but once you start thinking about the underground and sanitary sewer leads, storm sewer, water services, different things like that, it comes a little bit more difficult. How are we going to get those across the road to the other side in an efficient way, making sure we got good quality, different things like that. I mean, those are things that come up in our discussions, and we're looking at different options that we would have. Also, how far away is that work zone going to be from our workers? Obviously we want a safe work zone for both the workers, pedestrians, and motorists that are going through this area. Also right now, as you all are aware, it's 2 lanes each direction, northbound, southbound. This would be taking it down to a single lane each direction, northbound, southbound. When the bridge goes up, Niles Avenue may become a parking lot at that point in time. You're also taking away no center left turn lane and things, one person tries to do something different and tries to turn left to make their life easier, it could back things up. So it's a lot of these different things that we're weighing there. The next option was full closure and detour. It's probably one of the ones where people hate to hear that, especially with downtown area. But there's a lot of pros to it, but there's cons to it as well. So, looking into this, what's the best way to do it? Again, we don't want to just say, hey, we're going to put barricades up on every single thing, shut it down for an entire year or two and hope for the best. Again, we got to see what we can do. Can we piece this into various segments? Can we, do things at certain times that kind of, help us, different things along the lines of that. Again, some of those part with construction questions that we had from the prior alternative now go away. Now we can build the sanitary sewer service from one side of the road to the other, not have to do anything temporary. We don't have to worry about temporary pavement to maintain traffic, which is the cost savings, different things along the lines of that. But again, there's also detours involved in working with the community a little bit more to get that, information across as well. And then the last one, this is very similar to that part with construction, is a directional detour. We can maintain 2 lanes of one direction of traffic, and then we would have to detour the other. Again, I think the pros and cons on this one are very similar to the part with construction one. You still only have half the roadway that you can work on at a time. You're maintaining traffic. The bridge goes up. You may have more capacity at that point in time for having two northbound lanes, but it still may stack up a little bit. So, again, pros and cons of there. So we'll fast forward. Overall, weighing the three alternatives that we had, part width, full closure and detour, and then the directional detour one, our recommendation is we go with alternative 2, which is the full closure and detour. Again, this allows us to shorten that construction season from possible 2 full construction seasons, which is what both alternative 1 and 3 would be, to about a season and a half. And with that season and a half, we would also get into the downtown area, which we kind of identify from Elm up to the Blossom Land Bridge and Port and Ship Street there. We would get that done in non-summer time frame, get that done during the late fall, winter, early spring, and hopefully get that done as quick as possible. So this is, again, kind of highlighting the full closure detour kind of in the different stages. What I want to focus on here is stages 1, 2, and 3. That is, again, the downtown area that we've kind of designated as where there's businesses and people getting from one side of the road to the other side of the road for businesses. Our goal on this would be to complete all that work by Memorial Day of 2028. So that way it's open for business once we have a lot of the tourist traffic that comes into town, and you would allow that cross traffic right into downtown. Then we would kind of proceed southerly, in those various segments of 4, 5, and 6, completing the rest of the work kind of in the more residential section that we've identified there. The big takeaway, like I said, is with full detour, we would be just starting in fall of 2027. So basically after Labor Day of 2027. And then we would be completing that downtown work by Memorial Day of 2028. The part width or directional detour, we'd be starting basically, we say winter, but probably spring of 27. And that work's not going to be done until, the following, like 28. It's going to take 2 full construction seasons that downtown would be impacted at that point in time, even during summertime. It kind of extends and amplifies the overall impact in that downtown area. So what to expect during construction? Everybody's driven through a work zone. We know how this goes. It's not the prettiest thing in the world. The biggest thing that we need to do is try and make sure we have access to all businesses at all times as much as we can. Construction staff, again, being a downtown area, we'll have our construction staff that's going to coordinate, extensively with the businesses. There's going to be some rerouting of traffic, whether motorists or pedestrians is going to happen. But we'll do that, make sure things are signed properly to, make sure people are going safe directions and it's safe for them to travel. Driveways, again, we're going to be doing those, try and minimize impacts, phase them a little bit, or if they have 2 driveways, we'll work on one and then, have one closed and then flip once it's done. Water shut off work, sanitary sewer work, that's going to be, coordinated with property owners, different things like that. So, again, lots of coordination that takes place by our construction staff once it is in construction. So nearing the end of this part, at least. So next steps, again, we're doing a lot of right-of-way work on this, as far as, trying to identify where we're going to have impacts. There's a lot of utilities through this area. They're outside of just the municipal utilities that I discussed already that we're going to be coordinating with, make sure that they're out of the way or, in a place where we can work around. And we're proceeding towards a 60% design submittal. The one thing that I would say with this project, again, we've been very transparent. We have a public story map website that we've had active since we started this thing back in early 2024. That's a QR code right there that you can go to. It's on the presentations I shared as well. It gives kind of the history of everything that we've done with the project so far. A little bit of history of the corridor as well. Shows the concepts as kind of presented today, different things along the lines of that. So it's been a great place to kind of store that, to kind of show the timeline of the project and how decisions were made and different things along the lines of that. Now, these aren't graphics that, blow this up a little bit, that I printed out for you today. Oh, geez, Louise, it does not like me right now. Okay, gotta change some sizing. But these are, it's not bad, I can tell you. Okay, it's going to be very hard to see this a little bit. I'll zoom in here and scroll through. These are very big maps. They're probably 100+ inches long. They're big roll plots that we have. These we've had at our public meetings. Sorry, this is painful. Okay, I think that's better. So this, find my little hand. Okay, this is not liking me right now. We'll do this. There we go. So here we're gonna, the roll plots that again, that kind of show the overall concept. It's kind of more, kind of landscape architect-y type drawings here instead of, the regular design type drawings. But it shows you kind of how we're gonna be repurposing some of the area and how things are gonna be changing. Also on here shows the different stages that we'll have that as kind of described with kind of, segmenting through the project. So these two areas here on the bottom, like the blue and the magenta colors here, these are the areas that be worked on. These be completed along with Port and Ship Street prior to Memorial Day of 2028. Again, get all that work done. We're adding additional center left turn lane refuge islands. We're going to have a new signal at Ship Street. The one big thing that we're changing on this that you'll see on the next thing is the operation of Ship and Port Streets. But overall, again, kind of, expanding the sidewalk areas. Right now, sidewalk areas might be 7 feet wide with light poles, traffic signs, planters, different things in that 7 feet. So now your usable space for pedestrians is maybe only about 4 feet. So we're kind of expanding that area throughout the corridor, reducing some of our pavement width there and kind of making it a little bit more of a walkable area. And then go up to the top portion here. I'm just going kind of from the north to the south, kind of the green area. Now we get into the residential section. Again, expanding some of those, refuge areas and the planting beds that we have. Trying to translate what currently is today on the south end of the project in the residential area to the north end. If you stand at kind of Elm Street right now and you look to the north, it's a sea of gray, of concrete, wide open, turns into a drag strip almost, it seems like when you're driving through there. Then you turn and look to the south and it's a lot softer. You got those median islands. I think it feels a little bit tighter. People drive a little bit more appropriate. Again, that's kind of why we're doing some of those improvements for safety purposes, hopefully trying to get people to drive the roadway that they should be driving it instead of how they might be driving it today. But then if I kind of go down here, again, kind of carrying down here, signal still showing where it's at Park. And then Niles Avenue, as you can see, kind of right here, kind of the dual left-hand turn southbound lanes to head down to Niles Avenue southbound. So overall, just kind of it's a little bit of a, wash, rinse, or repeat down here with how things operate on the south end. We will have a bigger island kind of south of Niles Avenue that will be extending past the AT&T building or different things like that to try and take up some of that space again, kind of keep traffic a little bit calmer, feeling a little bit tighter from that aspect. So the one last thing on this one that I wanted to highlight was again right in front of this building here for impacts. Oops, there it is. So Berrien County Admin Building right here. A little bit of the revisioning will be the left-hand turns as you come into here. So now you'd be able to turn right here on Pearl to come in. That would actually be taken away. That left-hand turn, you would have to go to Park at the signal to take a left-hand turn. Again, that was part of that revisioning that we looked at as far as balancing crosswalks and vehicular left-hand turns, different things like that. But overall, along the frontage, we replaced all the utilities, different things like that. Some of the trees that might exist here may have to be removed, but they'll be replanted with something appropriate as well. Now getting into the next one, if I can find that one. Bear with me 1 second. This is the Port and Ship Street one. Hold on. It's always fun using a different computer. Sorry. Oh, you're good. It's just it. Oh, Lord. Okay. I got it. It's hiding behind the little presenting bar. Okay. I was doing so good. Come on. Okay, there we go. I might have it. Aha. Sorry. Okay. There it is. All right, same type of drawing here for Port and Ship Streets. This one I just don't have to worry about scrolling as much. Obviously not as long. Again, this work starts after Memorial Day or not Memorial Day, Labor Day of 2027. There may be some work that actually starts before that time frame, but it's also, but the big focus we have on that, because it's basically right here, this early fall 2027, so that might actually start during the summer a little bit. That's for our storm sewer outfall into the St. Joseph River, Morrison Channel area. But we would allow that work so that way we're not impacting traffic. That work kind of be taking place, maybe just need a lane closure or something like that. But that's the big focus that we kind of have here. But overall, kind of what on this one, again, it's going to impact Berrien County properties a little bit more. And if I zoom in, hopefully I don't screw this up again. So kind of going from, west to east here. We've worked with Berrien County Courthouse and I think it's Don Trail. He requested a possibility of a new driveway just on the north side of Port Street on M63 here. So we're looking into possibly adding that. Also, there's 3 driveways right there between the courthouse and the sheriff's department. Again, we're going to work on staging on those to make sure we're not completely closing things off. Maybe one's closed, but then the other one's open. Again, trying to make sure we can still have business as usual coming in. It might be a little bit more time to get in and out just because we're reducing a driveway to 1 at a time, but it would still, allow traffic. One thing we don't have noted here is kind of this little left-hand turn on Port Street right now. We're actually looking to extend that through the courthouse driveway right here to allow for, now northbound traffic can go up and actually turn right onto Port Street and get in there. Because again, as I mentioned, both Port and Ship Street would turn to 2-way traffic. Ship Street would remain at I-94 BL proper, and then Port Street would return to the city of St. Joseph as a local roadway at that point in time. Then go down here, I'll slide over here. Also, Berrien County Sheriff's Department, their kind of driveway, their easterlymost one, that one's been identified as one that has to remain open at all times. So that one will be working, hand in hand with the Sheriff's Department to make sure we always have access there. No. You said thank you. I was like, oh, sure. I thought I got yelled at. But that's one where we'll make sure, we're maintaining access through there. Might be some part with construction, but again, that'll have to be coordinated with them during construction. And again, we've had the contractor there, they're hearing this, so they don't have any surprises when they come into, come into construction, hopefully. And then lastly, if I can get down here, kind of looking right here by where the existing parking lot is for the Sheriff's Department, the county building and stuff like that. There'll be some impacts there. Right now, we've, based on our survey, we found part of the parking lot is in MDOT right away. So we'll have to redo that. As part of our work, we'll move that parking lot back into outside of our right of way there. And then also right in the corner of existing Wayne and that parking lot there for Ship, we would need a little bit of proposed right of way to construct sidewalk through there. Kind of redoing that curve, trying to soften it a little bit. We just kind of, everything gets pushed out a little bit. That's why we're kind of getting into that parking lot, that's an existing MDOT right of way. But we would be looking to acquire a little bit of proposed right of way there as well. But again, both Port and Ship Street, that work would all be taking place starting, after Labor Day of 2027 into, Memorial Day of 2028. It would be completed by. Everything kind of is, all the MDOT storm sewer comes down Ship Street, then outletting into the channel there. Some of it's going to be very deep. So it's going to be a lot of work going on there. But I guess with that, that's what I had prepared today to kind of go through. I know in talking with Brian, I had mentioned to him, I'd love it if we get a resolution of support from Berrien County regarding this project. Again, we've had a lot of good communication with Brian and other county staff regarding the different improvements that we have. We're going to have that continued in, coordination as well as moving forward. But, the more support we can get for this as we're getting towards, furthering in design and then eventually construction, it's worth its weight. It's nice to see that you have a community that backs it as we're coming into it, because it is a generational type project. Again, 1950s concrete out there right now that's going to get replaced. I mean, it's going to really, enhance the downtown area through this corridor. So that's what I have, unless there's any questions.
Questions for Mr. Smith, Julie?
I have so many. It's great to have an MDOT representative here, and that's probably why I have so many. The few of the main questions I have, why the parking on Main Street, perhaps you've heard there's a parking problem in St. Joe.
Yep.
So why is that all being removed? that's taking away spots. And then with that, how will pedestrian crossing work during construction? I understand where they'll go
Yeah.
after, but
Yeah, so we'll get to the easy one first, probably the pedestrian crossings during construction, again, that'll be gravelled out most likely for people to get across, we'll try and have the best service that we can, we'll put up barricades, pedestrian barricades, different things like that, signage to make sure we can get people across and, in a safe place. People may have to go from one block to the next to get across, because if they're working and they got a 20-foot deep trench right there, obviously we don't want them crossing right next to that, but we're gonna do it in the best way possible. Now, kind of your loaded question regarding parking, we've looked at it. We've had a lot of discussion, obviously, I'm in the area. I see all the public, the parking stuff that's going on with the paid parking and things like that. There was a report done, I know, by the city of St. Joseph a number of years ago when they were looking into the paid parking. Overall parking on Main Street, there's 34 spaces. Those ones would go away as part of the project, and that space would be repurposed into extra, streetscape elements, wider sidewalks. Like I said, now you're going from having only a 4-foot walking width or 5-foot walking width into possibly, a 10-foot wide walking width. So you don't have to feel like you have to step aside to allow somebody to go past you, different things like that. That parking report that we had looked at, that the city of St. Joseph had provided us, it's not necessarily, a true capacity problem. It's kind of a demand problem a little bit. So those 34 spaces in the overall scheme of things is only about I think there's 1,200 public parking spaces for the city of St. Joseph lots right now. You can add in basically another 200 from the courthouse when they can use that, because I know that was passed recently. So that 34 spaces is about less than 3% of total parking in the downtown area. So again, do people use it? Yes. A lot of times when I've driven through there, a lot of times when I've driven through the weekends, it may be full, but
summer, winter, they're always full.
but
Summer
when
and winter.
I've traversed through the area, I might see half of them. You see the market, different things like that. Again, we can't be everybody's everything. We're trying to balance the needs between the pedestrians and the parking, as well as the vehicular traffic, different things like that. So between working with the partnership that we've had with St. Joe, as well as as others on the project, we felt the best use of that is converting that into a more usable pedestrian space instead of the public and instead of the on-street parking there.
Okay.
Also, I think when you look at it, if you go out on Broad Street and you're trying to pull out and take a right-hand turn or a left-hand turn there, and you're looking off to the south trying see what traffic is coming northbound, it's hard to see around some of those cars sometimes, and you start focusing on that car to see around it versus a pedestrian that might be in the crosswalk next to you, or you just see that car last minute if you're trying to take that, right turn on red. So I think it does help with that safety aspect as well by removing those, visual obstructions out there as well.
Okay, and then my second set of questions are regarding the detour. So 2 questions. What's the plan on M139? And since that is the detour route, and I know that's gonna be under reconstruction also.
Yep.
And then is there any possibility, and maybe this question's for Mark, is there any possibility of Napier going back to 4 to 5 lanes during these reconstruction and detour process? Because that also does this thing.
Yeah.
Since we made it an hourglass.
So I guess as far as the M139 project, I'm the project manager on that one as well, coming to the end of design on that one. That work from basically Pipestone to the north, that's all gonna be in 2026. And then from Pipestone down to just north of Fairplain Drive, that's gonna be in 2027. The big thing that we're trying to push is that we get that part in 2027 done before any detour goes into effect after Labor Day of this. Again, trying to work those projects together so we're not running somebody into a work zone and around. Because we know how that goes right now as far as all of our 94 work going on. So there's that component of it. The detour, again, we're gonna work with the county to make sure we're taking logical detours around. People that live and work in the area or frequent it, they're gonna know ways to get around. You're gonna know the local roads. So while we might sign a detour, grabbing them on Niles Avenue, taking them over Napier to M139, up, M139 to Main Street, and then back into, city of St. Joseph that way. People might go right to Langley or, Broad and kind of follow in there. Again, the big thing that we've been trying to focus on that is we're leaving little relief valves kind of to try and get into the downtown area. You have coming from the south as well. People might go to the south, take Lakeshore Drive in that way too. So, kind of that segmented approach that we're kind of showing here. we're not just barricading off the whole entire project limits and moving forward with that and hoping, wishing everybody the best. We're trying to do that in segments. So now, hey, we get this one done. It's open up to that point. Now we're moving to this one. Now we have that section closed. Now people can get around to the one that just got completed to get across. So trying to do it in that segmented approach, I think is going to help trying, traffic to get around. And again, there's going to be people that don't know the area that are going to take the detour as posted, which that's kind of what the intent is for our detour routes, because everybody who knows the local roads is going to get around in a different way. But we know that there's going to be some diversion on the other roads as well to get in. 94 is supposed to be completed in 2026. So yes, that's kind of one of the pushes too, why we split M139 project into 2 years, was that way. From 94 up to Napier, no work's going on there. That's kind of the main detour route with some of the, that mess going on 94 right now. So we'll avoid that. And then that will come back after 94 jobs done in 26 and finish that work on 139 and 27. So.
Any thoughts on Napier?
Not at this time. You're saying changing it back to 4 lanes each way? Not at this time. I would have to review with our engineering department, providing any background on that.
I mean, the 4 lanes, 3 lanes, I mean, we've had a lot of discussion on different things on various road segments. 4-lane road sections are less safe than what the 3-lane road sections are. I mean, they can function, good still. I mean, you get the left turners out of the way and people can proceed on versus, people kind of doing that zigzagging in lanes to get around, people going slower. Again, I think, we can't expect all the traffic that's going through downtown that's going to use the detour route. We just know that's not realistic for us. And, there's going to be some people that are going to be diverting around other routes. So.
Other questions for Mr. Smith? Okay, thanks very much for the time and attention that you put into this. We appreciate it. And you are a Coloma Comet, is that right?
Class of 2004.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Dave.
His father, mother, his grandfather, mother, all going back as far as I have, so I know.
Wow.
Their family's been full of fun. So I remember John when he was in school and his father coaching against him and with him. They're a good family and well known and recognized in Coloma.
Oh, we do appreciate it. Anyone have anything else? All right, let's get to committees and we'll be back at 10:30.
Yeah, I was gonna have one, but that's all right.
No public comments?
John.
Are we not in public comments?